Hello boys and girls, today we're going to continue with data analysis. Today we're going to be focusing on the bar graph. Go ahead and turn to your table of content. Today is February the 13th, 2019, and today again we're going to be going over bar graphs. We're working on 2 pages today. Page, 59 and 60. Once you've written this in, go ahead and turn to page 59 and 60. Okay, boys and girls, go ahead and title your notes. Okay, and today we're continuing again with data analysis, and what we're working with today is the bar graph. Now, when you are working with data and you are wanting to know if you can use a bar graph or not, you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the graph? And if the purpose is to compare data, then a bar graph would be a good option. Remember that yesterday we worked with the dot plot, and the dot plot also compares data. So those are the 2 that you can use when you're comparing data. You are going to be needing 2 handouts for your notes for today. One of them looks like this, and the other one looks like this. You are also going to be needing a glue stick. We're going to get started with this one first. Now, this is what a bar graph looks like, boys and girls. It has bars, it may have a key, and it has a label on the y-axis and a label on the x-axis, and that tells us what information is being put in that section. Okay, whenever you are going to be working with a graph, whether it's a bar graph, stem and leaf, dot plot, or any of the graphs that we're going to be working with, you need to remember that the strategy is iTalks. So whenever you are working on a problem like this in your test, the first thing you're going to do before you even read it, before you even write anything, is you're going to write iTalks. The I is for the introduction, which is right here. It's very important to read this introduction, boys and girls, because it gives us background information of where they're getting the data from or what it represents. An elementary school sold bags of popcorn for a fundraiser. The students sold bags of buttered popcorn and cheese-flavored popcorn. 1 bar from week 2 is missing from the graph. Week 2, oh yes, there's something missing there. An elementary school is selling popcorn to raise money. The students are selling 2 types of popcorn, butter and cheese. That's what the introduction is telling us. Moving on to the T. The T stands for the title. Popcorn sales. Okay, so then the graph is about popcorn sales, how many popcorns they've sold. Moving on to the A and the L. The A and the L stands for all labels. And again, the A and the L go together. Here's the first label, the label for the y-axis, number of bags, and then the label for the x-axis is the weeks. Moving on to the K for key, which is right here. We are looking at buttered flavored popcorn as the darker black, or the first one. So that's butter, 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 and butter. And the second one, or the gray one, is cheese. Cheese, this one is missing cheese, 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 and cheese. Now we can move on to the letter S. The letter S stands for scale and value. The scale is right here. We want to know what this bar graph is skip counting by. If we look at the interval here, we want to know what the bar graph is skip counting by. Now, the numbers say that it's 20, but if you look carefully, you will see that there is a line between the 0 and the 20. What is between 0 and 20? It's 10. What's between 20 and 40? 30. 50 there. 70 there. 90 there. 110 there. 130. So the scale for this problem is 10. It's skip counting by tens. And now the value. Let's look at the first bar. The first bar is at 60. The second bar is at 90. The first bar on number 2, 110. And then it's missing a bar. Moving on to number 3, week 3, 120. 70. 80. 100. 110. And lastly, 70. And now that we've done all of that, now that we've really analyzed our graph, we can look into the question and see how we're going to answer it. Here's the question. During the 5 weeks, the student sold a total of 410 bags of cheese-flavored popcorn. 410 cheese flavor, meaning the second column. Which bar best represents the data for week number 2? And remember that week number 2 is missing the second bar. That's what we're trying to figure out. Now we do have the word total here. And total means that we need to combine stuff. And then we are missing information. And when you want to figure out the missing amount, you would use subtraction. Let's go ahead and find the cheese flavored popcorn, which is the second column. We have 90 for week 1. We don't know for week 2, but for week 3 we have 70. And let's start combining those to see what is the total for the weeks that we do have. That's 160. Now let me combine the 100. 260 and then the 70. 7, 3 makes 10, and 3 more makes 13. There's 330 in the bars that we already have, but we're missing one. And we know that the original total is 410. So what do I have to do with the 410 and the 330 to figure out the missing amount? We have to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 3 minus 1, I can't subtract that. I need to borrow from the 4. The 4 becomes a 3. This becomes an 11. 11 minus 3 is 8. And then 3 minus 3 is 0. Meaning that the missing bar here on week 2 is 80. Now we can go ahead and look at our answer choices and see which one gives us 80. This first one here is at 80. This one here is between 80 and 100, which is 90, and 90 is too much. This one here is between 60 and 80, which is 70, and 70 is too little. And then this one here is at 60, and 60 is also too little. My correct answer here for this one is letter A. Go ahead, boys and girls, and take your glue and glue this page into your notes so we can go ahead and get started on the next page. And it's going to be another example of another bar graph. So go ahead and do that very quickly. Okay, now that I've glued that in, I can go ahead and move on to the next page. And we're going to be using our second example on this page, which is this one right here. So again, this is also a bar graph, but the bars are going horizontally this time. But nonetheless, whenever you're working on a test or on any assignment and you see a type of graph, whether it's a bar graph, a dot plot, stem and leaf, any type of graph, the very first thing you're going to write is italks. Remember, the I stands for introduction. And the introduction is right here. The bar graph shows the amount Mr. Tover paid for 2 of his utility bills for 5 months. 1 bar of March is missing from the graph. Okay, so kind of similar to the one we already did. There's a missing amount right here. And Mr. Tover is paying his bills, which is what's in our graph. And we have the bills for January, February, March, April, and May. Okay, now that we know what our graph is about, we can go ahead and move on to the next letter, which is the title. Utility bills. And again, it's confirming that this has to do with Mr. Tover's bills. Moving on to the A and the L, and they go together. We have a label for our y-axis and a label for our x-axis, amount of bills, and then the months. And now moving on to the next letter, which is the key, K for key, and my key is right here. The first bar stands for natural gas. The second one for electricity, natural gas, electricity, natural gas, electricity. Natural gas, and we're missing the electricity, natural gas, electricity, natural gas, and electricity. Now we can move on to the letter S, which is scale and value. The numbers here are going by 50s, but if you notice, there's a little section between the 50 and the 100 and the 0 and the 50 and between each one. That means that there's something that goes right there between. What's between 0 and 50? Think about quarters. 25. And I'm going to turn my graph this way. That way it's easier to write. What's between 50 and 100? Going by 25 is 75, $1, or 100 if you were thinking of quarters. 125, 150, 175, 200, 275, 225, 225, 250, 275, and then 300. Okay. Turning it back to its original form. Okay, so the scale it's skip counting by 25. Moving on to the value. So we're going to go to each bar and figure out how much each bar is worth. The first bar is worth 200. The second bar in January is worth 150. The next one is worth 175. The next one, 100. The next one, 125. The next one, 75. The next one, 225. The next one, 75. And the last one, 275. Okay, now that we've gone through our whole strategy for understanding graphs, now we can go ahead and read the question at the bottom. It says right here, Mr. Tover paid a total of $925 for electricity during the 5 months. 925, and again, that is the total for all of electricity. So all of the second bars, if you add them all up together, it should give you 925. But remember that we're missing one. Which bar represents the data for March? So we want the missing bar for March. So to figure out the missing one, oops, forgot the N. We're going to have to do subtraction. Okay, let's go ahead and get started by combining all of the electricity values, and then from there we'll subtract it from the total to figure out the missing amount. If you think you can do this independently, go ahead and pause the video and work it out on your own, and then check your work with mine. Or if you feel that you still need a little bit of help, let's go ahead and do it together. The first value for January for electricity is 150. And then we have 100 for February. So I'm going to add those to get the total. I have 250. Then I have for April, I have 225. That's 475. And then for May, we have 275. 10, 14, 15, 4, 5, 6, 7. 750 is how much it is without the missing bar. And the total, the real total, is 925. So I need to subtract the 750 by the 925 to figure out my bar that is missing. 5, I can't subtract 5 from 2, I borrow from the 9 becomes an 8, and this 2 becomes a 12. So then 5 and 5 make 10, plus 2 more make 12, so that's 7, 1. The missing bar is 175, which would be right around here. That's the bar that we need here. This bar right here is after the 250, so that's 275, and that's too much. 150 is too little. 200, too much. 175, which is between 150 and 200, is the answer that I'm looking for. Go ahead, boys and girls, and glue this page into your notes. Okay, my paper's glued in. Okay, so now, boys and girls, what you're going to do is you're going to start working on your independent practice. Now, one thing that I do want you to remember, and I do want you to do in every single problem, is the strategy. Make sure that you're writing iTalks on all of your problems, on all of your graphs. Make sure that you're carefully analyzing them. I'm going to be looking for that strategy when I pick up your assignment tomorrow. Go ahead and get started, boys and girls.